Julian, Grayson's first love, the woman he'd always adored, just gave birth to their third child. For our 10th anniversary, he paraded his third child by her in front of me, his voice strangely calm. Serena's children are the future of the Grayson legacy. As my wife, it's your duty to raise them right. I didn't scream or break down like before. I just quietly took the baby. Loud, mocking laughter erupted, filling the ballroom. I heard she used to throw terrible tantrums. Someone snickered. Guess she finally learned her lesson. The Reynolds are bankrupt anyway, someone whispered. She knows fighting is pointless. No kids of her own. She'll be tossed out eventually. Julian simply watched, letting their snide remarks and humiliating stares wash over me. I swallowed the bitter taste in my mouth, then forced a small smile. Julian, I want a divorce. Julian looked like I'd just told the funniest joke. He sneered. Aurora Reynolds, if you can cough up $1 billion right now, I'll sign the papers immediately. Otherwise, stop this pathetic act. I didn't say a word. I just dialed an unfamiliar number. I accept your terms. The man on the other end chuckled softly, his voice cultured and smooth. A mere $1 billion. I can have it wired to you anytime, but are you sure you want to bind yourself to me for a man who's not worth it? The guest's whispers sliced through me like knives. I heard the Reynolds are drowning in debt. They're only surviving because Mr. Grayson throws them scraps like a stray dog. If she leaves him, she'll be living on the streets by tomorrow, won't she? I looked at the baby in my arms, the child that wasn't mine, and felt a familiar ache in my heart. 10 years of marriage, 10 years of Julian and Serena, his childhood sweetheart and the woman who helped him build his empire, having 3 children and giving them to me to raise. 6 years ago, I cried and raged, refusing them, utterly broken. Julian showed no mercy. He used the very survival of my family, the Reynolds, to force me into submission. 3 years ago, I rebelled again. Julian, without a word, confiscated my cards and threw me out. I remember freezing in the winter cold, my mind hazy with despair, until I finally returned, weeping, begging Julian for forgiveness. We fell in love young, at his most devoted. He even shielded me from an enemy's bullet, but now, we'd grown to despise the sight of each other. It was time to end this, I'm sure. The man let out a pleased laugh. 3 days from now, everything will be as you wish. The call ended. I stood in silence for a long time, seeing my red eyes and my quiet refusal to speak. Julian's mocking expression softened slightly. Aurora, raising Serena's children well is what truly matters. As long as you're obedient, the position of Mrs. Grayson is yours forever. No more drama. Okay, he was actually coaxing me, a rare occurrence, but it was all for her. I had no strength left to fight. Clutching the baby, I turned and walked away. As soon as I stepped back into the Grayson mansion, a picture book slammed into my forehead. The pain was so sharp I almost dropped the baby. 6-year-old Leo, their first child, was glaring at me, his face a mask of fury. Why didn't you warm up my milk? I winced, glancing at the 2 nannies nearby. One was filing her nails, the other scrolling on her phone, rolling her eyes. Mr. Grayson said it's your job to look after the young master. Don't blame us for your laziness, Mrs. Grayson, right? Julian had arranged all of this. Julian deliberately made me care for his and Serena's children, under the guise of a wife's duty. I remembered when Leo had a high fever, how I stayed awake for 3 days and nights, nursing him, a weak premature baby. When he had chickenpox, I covered myself in ointment and quarantined with him. Despite the mess between Julian and Serena, the children were innocent. Yet, the children I poured my heart into raising were now staring at me like I was their enemy. Blood truly ran thicker than water. In their eyes, I was nothing more than a glorified nanny, to be ordered around. I warmed his milk, but as I handed it to him, he violently knocked it over. Can't you even take care of a child properly? Julian was back. His cold voice came from behind me. He shoved me away. What if you burned Leo? My throat tightened. I'd tested the milk. It wasn't hot enough to burn anyone, and besides, I was the one who got splashed. Leo made a smug face at me, then burrowed into Julian's arms. Daddy, mommy is clumsy. When are you taking me out to play? Julian ruffled his hair fondly. In 3 days, we'll all go out with Serena, and bring your brother and sister. Serena's smile stiffened when she heard him say her name, but she clutched Julian's arm even tighter. I noticed an emerald ring on her finger, a precious heirloom my mother had entrusted to Julian before she died. My marriage to Julian was a billion-dollar deal. 13 years ago, when Julian wasn't yet the head of the Grayson empire, we were deeply in love. Then, I was accidentally misdiagnosed with late-stage stomach cancer. To avoid burdening him and jeopardizing his fight for the family business, I faked family opposition and broke up with him. Later, when my family, the Reynolds, faced bankruptcy, Julian appeared with $1 billion. He said if I married him, he'd use the money to save my family. I was so naive back then. I thought he loved me too much to let me go, that I was getting a second chance at our shattered love. I never imagined he came back filled with hatred on her deathbed. My mother entrusted him with that ring. He promised, with tears in his eyes, he'd treat me well. Now, that ring sat on Serena's hand, a bitter mockery of everything. Aurora, she purred, noticing my gaze. Julian said this looks beautiful on me. She playfully wiggled her hand. He said you're always focused on the kids. Why bother with appearances? It's just a waste on you. Julian casually added, it was just sitting there, collecting dust anyway. My heart felt a complicated, inexpressible bitterness. I just wanted to turn and leave. Oh. Serena suddenly shrieked. The ring slipped from her finger, shattering into pieces on the floor. My instinct was to bend down and pick it up, but then everything went black as I crashed into the coffee table. As blood streamed down my temple, I caught a glimpse of Julian's momentary panic. He frowned, his hand instinctively reaching out to steady me, but then Serena suddenly cried out in pain, clutching her ankle. He instantly pulled his hand back, sweeping Serena into his arms with anxious concern. I fell to the floor with a thud. Oh, Aurora, how clumsy can you be? Serena leaned into Julian's embrace, her voice sickly sweet. Julian, should we call a doctor to check on her? Julian frowned, glancing at me. After a moment of hesitation, his tone grew impatient. It's just a scratch. Don't be so dramatic. He turned and carried Serena and their children upstairs to rest. I walked alone to my small, forgotten annex. Behind me, the nanny's sneers were unconcealed, still putting on her lady of the house act. Huh. Hope she breaks her neck. I curled up on my narrow bed, sleeping until midnight. The wound on my forehead still throbbed. Footsteps approached outside the door, followed by Julian's cold voice. Grandfather's 80th birthday gala is tomorrow. You'd better behave yourself. I didn't respond. The door was abruptly shoved open. Julian's tall figure stood in the doorway, a first aid kit in his hand. Before I could react, he roughly pulled me up, his grip so strong it made me wince. You know it hurts, so why didn't you put on some medicine? He stared at my wound, a cold smirk on his face, but skillfully took out an alcohol wipe. You're not trying to let grandfather see you looking like this tomorrow, so he'll take your side, are you? Julian, I asked softly. Why did you marry me? His movements paused for a beat, then he mockingly pinched my chin. Because you needed the Grayson family's $1 billion. In the darkness I silently laughed, tears streaming down my face. I should have known he didn't marry me out of love. For 10 years he'd resented my parents for tearing us apart, unaware that I left him because I was misdiagnosed with cancer. By the time I wanted to tell him the truth, he hated me to his core. I pulled the divorce papers from my bag and placed them on the bed. Over the years I'd suggested divorce a few times, but it never worked. The Reynolds were bankrupt and Julian had me confined to the house, taking care of the children. I had no way to come up with $1 billion for my freedom as he'd demanded. He knew it too, never taking my request seriously. He sounded impatient. Aurora, are you ever going to stop this drama? This time it's real. My voice was soft, yet firm. I'll find a way to pay you back, even if you don't believe me. My feelings for you. Serena's sweet, whiny voice drifted down from upstairs. Julian, where did you put my pink lingerie? Julian immediately let go of me, crumpling the divorce papers and tossing them into the trash. All right, you've squandered every last dime you ever had. Besides me, who else would give you $1 billion? The door slammed shut. The next day, I forced myself to apply makeup, covering the wound on my forehead, and arrived at the birthday gala. Julian's assistant, however, seated me in the very last row, in a corner, at the same table as the Grayson family's drivers and nannies. Well, isn't that Mrs. Grayson? A socialite passed by, covering her mouth with a delicate laugh. What are you doing sitting here? I sat down in silence, whispers drifting from behind me. I heard Mr. Grayson brought another child back. Miss Hayes is so fertile, so blessed with children. No wonder he adores her, right? And his legitimate wife is stuck at the staff tables. So embarrassing. I gripped my napkin, my knuckles white. A moment later, Julian strode over, Serena trailing behind him. Who told you to sit here? The assistant stammered. Miss Hayes said you wanted Mrs. Grayson to sit here. Serena's face instantly paled with feigned panic, but Julian merely frowned, saying nothing. Her triumphant smile returned. I followed Julian to greet grandfather.